Good evening and welcome to the Forum on Policing and Race. The forum is sponsored by the League of Women Voters of the Cincinnati area, the American Civil Liberties Union, and the Women's City Club of Cincinnati. My name is Laurel Staley. I'll be your moderator this evening. I'm a member of the Policing and Race Committee of the League of Women Voters. This session will be recorded and will be available tomorrow on the League's website. Tonight's forum will be held in two 45-minute sessions. Each session will consist of 3 to 4 Cincinnati City Council members. Congressman Landsman will be available for half an hour during the first session. And
Okay, Laurel has frozen. Do one of the other questioners want to take over?
Hey, everyone.
Hi.
Hi.
Pamela, I do have Laurel's script here as we were welcoming everyone, so I can go ahead and try to continue as moderator. Yeah, she was welcoming everyone to the first session, and I was gonna let everyone know who is joining us in this first session. So we do have Congressman Greg Landsman joining us, as well as President Pro Tem Victoria Parks, Council Member Scotty Johnson, and Council Member Liz Keating. Thank you all for joining us.
Thank you for having us.
I was just going to note that we will ask a series of questions to be addressed to each council member. We ask that you keep your response at 2 minutes, just because this is a 45-minute session, and we do have a number of questions to ask. So do you have any questions before we get started at all? Okay, and because our first session does include Congressman Landsman, we were going to start our question with you and actually give you 5 minutes.
You don't have to do that.
Okay.
That's fine. I think it's easier. Just that's very sweet, but I'm fine. I don't have and I didn't realize this was Zoom, so I don't have to run.
Well, I have a question for you.
Oh, okay, that's fine. But you don't have to give me 5 minutes. I will keep it to 2. That way we keep it moving along.
Okay, yeah. and I will time everyone too.
Okay, good.
So I'm questioner and timekeeper. My first question is, as the U.S. representative for Ohio's 1st District, can you talk about how your legislative priorities might align with or even advance the initiatives that you either led or worked on as a Cincinnati City Council member?
Sure. Great question. So the 3 pieces of legislation that I hope to introduce and or sign on to in the next week or 2, and I say introduce or sign on to because it's not clear if people who had similar bills in the previous Congress will resubmit those bills in this new Congress. If they do, I sign on to those and help them get those bills over the finish line. If they don't, I would submit my own bill with them, hopefully. But I believe all 3 are bipartisan in nature. The first would be around public safety, and cities, counties, townships across the country, including in Cincinnati, we're struggling with staffing and making sure that we have enough recruits and that we're retaining our top talent, both for police officers and firefighters. There are federal grants that help communities, but you get in every couple of years because there's not enough money to cover everybody. It's called the COPS grant and the SAFER grant. And my bill would increase the amount of money that jurisdictions can apply for so that there would be more dollars, and provide flexibility so that folks can use those dollars for the things that they're really needing to do now, which are recruitment bonuses and pay, and retention bonuses and pay. And so I believe there will be bipartisan support for that kind of bill. The second has to do with capping the cost of insulin for children, which doesn't cost anyone anything except for the pharmaceutical companies. They would obviously make less money, but it doesn't cost taxpayers more, and it is a life-saving drug. And then the third is reintroducing a version of the child tax credit that would get bipartisan support that would help millions of people move into the middle class and pay their bills.
Great, thank you. With 10 minutes or 10 seconds to spare, so thank you. And it looks like we have her moderator back. Laurel, we had started just with Congressman Landsman, but if you want to step back in, and I do realize I neglected to introduce our co-sponsors that will also be asking questions. Do you want to go ahead and make those introductions, Laurel? I'm sorry. And you're muted, by the way. The people, we can't hear you, Laurel. I think it's because you're muted.
Okay. You hear me now? I am unmuted.
You're breaking up too much, Laurel.
Can
No, you're not coming through.
Okay. Well, I'll go ahead then and introduce Riley Taylor from Riley Taylor, Southwest Ohio Organizing Strategist for the ACLU of Ohio, and Jan Seymour,
can you
Vice President of Civic Engagement for the Women's City Club of Cincinnati. And they'll be asking questions as well as me. So I am going to go ahead and direct my first question. And I think once I get through my question, then we'll do a round robin type question and go to Riley and then Jan. Councilmember Keating, you are right in the middle of my screen. So I'm going to direct this question to you. And again, 2 minutes to respond. So in December, WCPO reported that approximately 268 police hours were saved in the first 4 months of the Alternative Response to Crisis, or ARC pilot program, in which a behavioral health specialist and a paramedic respond to emergency communication center calls rather than the police. These calls are often related to trespassing and mental health and welfare checks. Do you see ARC becoming a permanently funded program? And are there other community programs, problem-solving programs or projects that you would like to see put into place? Thank you.
Absolutely, and thank you for the question. Thanks for having us and getting the crew back together with Mr. Landsman here. It's like good like old times, even though you've been gone for a couple of weeks. But yeah,
this is too long though. Sorry.
No, it does feel like you've been gone for so long. So it's awesome to have you back and to have a partner in DC. But this is a great example of how innovative and forward thinking the city is. And I have to give so much credit to the administration and the leadership that we have at the city. I don't think they get enough credit for this kind of work. We're always looking at new innovative ways to be able to approach some of the challenges that we have. And having this ARC program, not only is it better for our community to be able to respond in the way that they need to be responded to and helped, but it also helps our police department that is so short-staffed. So as you said, 290 hours saved out of it with 270 runs, and that's everything from trespassing and mental health checks and welfare checks and disorderly conduct and intoxication and panhandling and things that we really don't need to spend officer time on, especially when you look at officer overtime and the millions of dollars we spend there. And so I do think this has been a huge success, and I do believe we will continue to support this. But the great thing is that we're going to continue to use our Office of Performance and Data Analytics, continue to track this, continue to find new tweaks that we can make and get better, and continue to expand the program and expand new innovations in other ways. That's what I love about the city. I love the work that we do. And I know these council members on the Zoom here with me tonight are all supportive. And it's really exciting for the city to be able to have these opportunities and these programs.
Thank you. And once again, in under the 2-minute mark. So great job.
Even with that chit chat at the beginning, I felt like I need to rush to catch up on that time.
Yeah, you had 10 seconds to spare. I was going to see if President Pro Tem Parks would like to respond to that question as well.
Well, thank you for the opportunity, and thank you so much for having us, giving us an opportunity to talk about the work that we've been doing. I'm so proud of my colleagues in this council and the creative and innovative and important work that we have accomplished. Our pilot has been a huge success. Sending mental health responders out to mental health issues instead of an armed officer is a win for everyone involved. The individual in distress has a trained mental health professional there to help them out, and the officers have more time to respond to dangerous situations. I would support ARC becoming a permanent program and would be interested in further community-based policing. I think it's fantastic. It makes so much sense. And really, I'm wondering, why didn't we think of this sooner?
Thank you so much.
Pleasure.
And Councilmember Johnson, would you like to respond?
Well, yeah, good evening. It's already been said. My colleagues have definitely addressed the ARC program as President Pro Tem Parks and Council Lady Keating have made it crystal clear that ARC has been a great success to this point. We will continue to keep tracking to see, we will continue to track to make sure its success stays where it needs to be. As legislators, we want to make sure that the funding is available so we have an assist to our police department. As Councilmember Keating talked about, the number of officers is low. As Congressman Landsman said, it's not just a Cincinnati issue, it's across our country. So we want to make sure we're doing everything we possibly can to assist the police and make sure that our citizens are getting the necessary care that they may need in particular situations. Every time there is a person in distress, they don't need the police. Some need mental health. Some need assistance in other arenas. So this program is successful. I am 100% behind it, and we want to make sure that we're doing everything legislatively to make sure it continues. So anything we can do to assist our citizens in our police department, we want to make sure that's done.
Thank you very much. Congressman Landsman, did you have anything to add on this topic?
Yeah, just that, Cincinnati really is at the, is a leader nationally in, community policing and the use of data, and that's playing out here in a really powerful way. That the police department is so innovative, the administration is incredibly innovative, and then we have this huge data capacity to ensure that these things are working and our resources can be deployed as effectively as possible. It really is a best practice for the rest of the country, and something hopefully I'll be in a position to lift up.
Great. Thank you. Thank you. So we are going to go to Riley Taylor from the ACLU and have her direct her questions.
First of all, for myself and the ACLU of Ohio, I'd like to thank the League of Women Voters for hosting us, as well as the Women's City Club of Greater Cincinnati for joining us. And of course, thank the council members as well as Congressman Landsman for joining us today. I will first direct my question to President Pro Tempore Parks. We declared racism a public health crisis. What tangible steps are we taking to address the impact of this crisis as it relates to police interactions with the community?
Okay, there we go. I'm fairly confident that you know that I wrote the resolution at Hamilton County that declared racism a public health crisis. So it's definitely a health crisis, and as a commissioner, I led the resolution stating so. We have taken some broader actions, such as fully funding the CCA, but we have also done more direct ones, such as our crackdown on officers using racial slurs while on the job. That is completely unacceptable. There's so many things that hit this. We have addressed affordable housing in order to ensure equitable and safe housing. But this is a big, like my friend Scotty says, we can't swallow an elephant. And so we have to take small bites out of it. I'm really proud of our affordable housing fund, which addresses it. We are working on completely changing the way the city does procurement. And for the Convention Center District, this is so exciting. We are working with the labor unions in order to provide a pipeline from school to a career, which will interrupt the pipeline from school to prison. So our objective is to, because think of all of the projects that we have going on in Cincinnati and in Hamilton County. There are over 90 different projects. Right now, we have a shortage of workers. And so in collaboration with the labor unions, and also working with the city of Columbus, who enacted a program called Jobs Futures, Jobs Futures, one of them. We are working with them in order to learn their lessons, learn from their mistakes, and to follow their lead. What this will do will tap populations from places in our city that suffer from disparities. Give them an opportunity to check out all of the trades: pipe fitting, electric, working, bricklaying, concrete, all of that. So they'll all get a taste of it and decide which one is good for them. Now, we know that there are three main barriers to progress when it comes to work and that kind of thing. And it is transportation, childcare, and healthcare. Well, with this opportunity, we have the money to address these obstacles and remove them. So we are stepping into an area where we are really trying to change the scope and to balance the playing field. Like we always say, people have been in these positions for years. We all know that there have been problems. Many of them were smarter than we are, but I think because of this council, we have a rhythm and a flow.
And your flow needs to flow
Yeah.
to
And
the
so,
2-minute warning.
am I over? Is my so we are working and we collaborate together in order to tackle these big problems.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Sorry about that. Go ahead, Riley. I'm sorry.
Would you like to respond on this topic?
You broke up.
I think she said, does anyone else want to respond?
The wind. I was saying, did Councilmember Johnson wish to answer the question? Windstorm is causing internet issues for everyone.
Thank you, Riley. I think as President Pro Tem Parks pointed out, we are a council, first and foremost. We've been a council that has made sure that we don't run from tough conversations and tough issues. The first way to address the issue is to say it is an issue. And we made it crystal clear that racism is a public health issue in the city, as President Pro Tem Parks led in the county with. The administration has been amazing to make sure that there's a zero tolerance when it comes to racial and homophobic slurs by city workers. And we have to make sure those of us that are in leadership positions are setting the example for everybody else. All of us in this amazing city have a role to play when it comes to racism. And those are the conversations we can't be afraid to address, and we gotta be willing to have the conversation so we can get past stereotypes. We can get past perceptions that we have had about one another. But as President Pro Tem Parks also pointed out, the fact that these shadowing jobs that are coming available, that are moving people from despair into solid professions where they will be able to provide for families and things like that. I think the Cincinnati public school system is doing their part also in talking about racism and things like that. So the first and foremost, what we've done with this elephant, this ugly elephant that has plagued our country far too long, the first thing we did said there is an elephant in the room, but let us start chomping bits and pieces and bites away from this ugly elephant. And as a city, we are going to lead the country when it comes to making sure that this anytime in any fashion, racism rears its ugly head, we're going to be there with a sword to chop its head off.
Thank you, Council Member. Congressman Landsman, would you like to answer the question?
Yeah, I would. I would just only add that there are a bunch of investments that we know could be made tomorrow, next year, that would dramatically reduce, if not eliminate, these disparities. Right? We could, as a country, we have enough money to make sure every expecting mother has great prenatal care, right? We could make sure that everyone has really healthy, safe, affordable housing. President Pro Tem Parks talked about transportation and healthcare as the other two big barriers. we could ensure that everybody is able to get where they needed to go. That may take a little bit longer, but we're investing in our public transit system, and we could add on to that. But the healthcare piece is one where that should never be a barrier to anyone in this country, and it remains a barrier. Even with Medicare and Medicaid, the private insurance market is still very problematic for a lot of folks, and then the prescription drugs are a lot of are problematic for a lot of folks. My only point is that you can't change overnight how people think and feel and act. However, we could, as a country and a city, start making those investments that make outcomes for newborns, to middle schoolers, to college age kids, to parents, to grandparents, to make those outcomes so much better because we invested in them.
Thank you, Congressman. And Councilmember Keating, would you like?
Absolutely. And as my colleagues have said, this isn't just focused, the only way to success here is not just focused on policing. It is the full picture. It is affordable housing. It is making sure every kid in every neighborhood has a safe place to live and food on the table and a stable home, and every working parent has the ability to have safe and stable childcare. And we need to be able to desegregate our neighborhoods. We need to get higher paying jobs so people can afford to make ends meet at the end of the month. We need to be able to have access to healthcare, to everything that my colleagues have said here. It's a much bigger picture to be able to solve that huge systemic problem that we have in our society. And if we're looking at the policing specific, I think Cincinnati is ahead of the game. And that's something that we got out of one of the ugliest times in our city's history from 2001. And when we were able to pull together all of the different stakeholders, everyone in the community, and come together and sit at the table and put together that living, breathing document, which is the collaborative agreement. And we continue to grow from that, and we continue to learn from that, and we continue to improve on that each and every day. And you just saw it recently with the police chief search. We had everyone at the table to be part of that. We had so many different community forums. We had the advocates in the community. We had the FOP. We had city administration and council members, everyone coming to the table to give feedback on who they wanted to see be a leader. And when we have everyone working together with that key word, collaborative, that's something special that we have in Cincinnati, and we will continue to have, which enables and empowers us to be able to fight the racism that we see and the struggles and the challenges that we have throughout society. And we can use that as a living, breathing example to help solve all these other problems together. And I always say, we might be the best in the country today, but if we just sit here and be proud of that and expect to still be the best tomorrow, it's not going to happen. We have to continue to be together every single day, working in that collaborative spirit, which Cincinnati has, to be able to solve all of these problems, all those pieces to the puzzle to get to where we really want to be. And I think Cincinnati can get there because we have that mindset and we've done it.
Thank you. Congressman, do you need to hop off? I think your time was limited, or?
I can do one more question. That's fine.
Okay. So Laurel, we were doing the round robin, and it will be Jan now addressing her question from the Women's City Club. Jan, would you like to start?
Okay. Councilperson Keating gave me a very good lead-in because my questions are about the new leadership in the police department. So I'll direct my first question, because it's about police, to Councilperson Johnson. So with the new chief, what programs has the chief proposed to the council, or what new programs has council proposed to her?
If I heard you, you were breaking up a little bit. If I heard you correctly, you were talking about what new programs Chief Fiji has proposed.
I actually have her written question, so
Okay,
I'll read
yes.
that. So she's asking, what changes do you expect or anticipate under our new chief of police? What new programs has Chief Fiji proposed to council? And what new programs is council proposing to her?
Well, I think Chief Fiji is, first and foremost, with Chief Fiji being the first female chief in the history of the city of Cincinnati, what that has done is broken the glass ceiling in the Cincinnati Police Department. And with that, what that has done is given I believe everybody that's paying attention in the department has shown that everybody has an opportunity to lead in the Cincinnati Police Department. One of the main things Chief Fiji is focusing on is making sure that, I'm not sure the year, and maybe one of my colleagues can help me, but she is strategically moving to try to move the Cincinnati Police Department into 30% female, move it to 30% of the Cincinnati Police Department to be female. Why is that important? It is extremely important because 33 years as a Cincinnati police officer, there are situations and circumstances that women police officers handle far better than male police officers. Women police officers sometimes can respond to a scene when you have a lot of chaos going on, and they'll come in with the mother approach and it shuts everything down. I've seen it time and time again. Too many times men show up and there's too much machoism going back and forth. So it's imperative to make sure women are leading in the Cincinnati Police Department. One of the main things that Chief Fiji is focused on, and it's working very well, is officer wellness. A lot of times people believe that police officers are robots and they should get over it because they now have a badge and a gun on their hip. I will tell you this, I witnessed far too many traumatic things in 33 years. And there was only one time an officer was standing next to me. We were on a SWAT situation. He took a bullet to the head. Praise God, our ballistic helmets work. And I was standing right next to him and I caught him. It was 5 days later when they decided maybe the guy standing there needed to talk to somebody. So officer wellness is huge. We want our first responders to be not just physically there, mentally and spiritually intact so they can continuously serve the citizens of Cincinnati. So those are two huge programs I think that's going to continuously allow Cincinnati to lead in policing throughout this country.
Thank you. Jan, do you want to direct another question?
Another question or to another
Or
person?
I'm sorry, same question, different council member.
Okay, well, I'll go over here to President Pro Tem Parks. What do you see with the new leadership? What programs might be new, proposed to her, or she proposing to council?
Thank you so much. You know, when I was commissioner, as part of our the steps that we took in our resolution to address racism as a public health crisis, we implemented what Hamilton County calls the ABLE program. And I got it, you know, that first week of protests after George Floyd was murdered. I was watching television and I saw a protester being apprehended by two police. One had his upper body, the other had his lower body. They put him on the ground and the police put his knee on his neck. And I was like, oh no. But then something different happened. His partner pushed him off, got him off of there and made sure that the citizen was okay. And so this really sparked my interest in it. It was in Milwaukee. And so we called them and we discovered that they got this program from Louisiana, from New Orleans. They call it the EPIC program, which is called, and I love this name, it's called Ethical Policing is Courageous. And so our Hamilton County sheriffs, we were one of like 20 police law enforcement agencies that went to George Washington and got the training. And by now, everybody has had the training and it's just wonderful. What this does is it holds everybody accountable for fairness, for treating our constituents with respect. And what I also love is Hamilton County didn't stop with the police department. This has trickled down through all of the other departments where you don't watch somebody falsify a report. So I would really like to see this. Before Chief Isaac left, I mentioned it to him, but of course he was gone. And then Teresa was interim. And so she knows that she'll that I'm coming, that I want her to do this. and I also believe that that I have the support of the mayor, my colleagues in the administration.
Thank you. Councilperson Keating, would you like to say something about changes that you might anticipate or see coming?
Absolutely. I without duplicating too much, I do want to reinforce what Councilmember Johnson mentioned, because I'm very excited about that 30% female officers by 2030. I think that's huge, and having the first female police chief is very, very exciting for the city. And the other thing I have worked closely with Chief Fiji on in the past is mental health. We are both very passionate about that area. And having that for our officers is so important, because if we are taking care of our officers from an emotional standpoint, they are going to be able to bring them their best selves to work every day. And that's going to make a massive impact on the way that we have our community relations, the way we respond in emergencies, and the way we can help people who need help in that moment. And something that wasn't mentioned, but I am very excited about, because I'm very, very passionate about this area. Chief Fiji is very data driven. Everything she does is based on data, and in their close work with the police department and our Office of Performance and Data Analytics helps us make tweaks and make policies and determine where we're going to focus our time based on data. So I mean, even if you look at the big picture of the work that like the collaborative agreement has done, we've been able to track that. And so since 2002, when the collaborative agreement was implemented, we've been able to reduce our use of force by 54%. And in 2022, it was at the lowest ever recorded in the city of Cincinnati. But that's still not good enough. We're continuing to track that each and every day. As we talked on the first question of ARC and the way that we have the alternative response, we're tracking that of how many calls we have per neighborhood, what types of calls, what, you know, and then being able to look at to see which partners we have coming for us, and can we do a better job? Could we have these partners come to more calls? Where should we station them? Where are we getting the biggest need in which neighborhoods? And then why is that? And then how can we work to prevent it in that way? When we did the traffic safety blitzes at the end of the year last year, because we've had such a huge problem with absolutely reckless drivers throughout our city, putting so many people in danger, we tracked that. And then we look to see where we can now implement more traffic blitzes throughout our city, which neighborhoods are the biggest problems, and then how we can then work with DOTE to help either create more traffic calming to slow cars down, to have more officer presence, because just seeing them out and about will lessen the likelihood of cars or drivers flowing through red lights. Everything she does is data driven. And I think that's very, very helpful, because then at the end of the day, it really does take a lot of the politics out of what we do, and really implements the best policies in the way we operate as a city, and the way we operate as a police department, because it is all data driven. And Chief Fiji is a huge advocate of that.
Can I jump in?
Well, thank you.
On that
Thank you
piece.
for that. Congressperson
You just call me Greg.
Landsman?
I'm still Greg.
Would you like to speak on that?
Yeah.
Oh,
So
no. No, I'm so glad you're my congressman.
well, thank you very much. I'm glad too. So the one thing that Liz is touching on is what is really at the heart of a lot of the success that we've had here locally, which is the collaborative and the problem solving and the use of data. So, these are complex issues. And when you try to solve anything on your own, you can only get so far. If you do it by bringing a bunch of folks together within a structured process, which Sarah provides, right? That's the problem solving method of the collaborative, where you can start to tackle the problem in even the root cause of what's happening, you start to see better and better results. And so one of the things that Chief Thigi is coming into, which is a huge advantage, is that infrastructure. It's there. So the problem solving culture is there. Can it get better? Absolutely. Across the administration, not just the police department. Sarah's something that should be used by all of us all the time, or at least problem solving in general. But then you have the Citizens Complaint Authority, you have, and that board, you have all of these existing initiatives and leaders. The administration brought in this collaborative agreement expert guru, Icon and Iris, who's working every day on this. So I mentioned that because I think Chief Thigi is set up for success in the sense that there is this, and she's been, obviously very helpful in a lot of the work. 2 decades worth of work and infrastructure and culture that's been built that will help with the next initiative and the next big breakthrough and the next big project.
Can I quick add something in there that that Congressman Landsman mentioned? I think this
seconds. Please.
Yes, real fast, because I think this is important, because we see it each and every day going on at City Hall, but because it's not big drama and something going wrong, I don't think it's talked about enough. And I think it's important for the community to understand. Think about this. We have a police chief, a city manager, one of the biggest community advocates in Iris Rowley. We have our FOP. They're constantly, and the Citizens Complaint Authority with Gabe Davis, they're constantly at the table together talking. They're constantly working together in that collaborative spirit to figure out ways that we can keep getting better each and every day. Those conversations with this police chief happen every week. She has a standing meeting with Iris Rowley every week. And I think if you look at other cities, that's absolutely unheard of. And so we always have the community together at the table with the decision makers. And I think that's something very special about Cincinnati, and I don't think that's talked about enough. And thank you to Congressman Landsman for bringing that up, because I want people to know and understand that is so normal for us to see. And I want to make sure people know that's always going on.
Thank you. Thank you. And I want to thank each and every one of you for participating. We have to wrap this up at 7:45. I wish we had more time, but we've got a second session to start. Thank you very, very much from all of our co-sponsors. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Have a great
you.
evening. Thank you. Laurel, do you want to give it another try?
Okay, well, I think everyone's kind of familiar with the round robin approach that we've been taking, so we'll get right into the meat of the matter. I'd like to welcome our second session participants. Councilman Reggie Harris, Councilwoman Mika Owens, and Jan Michelle Lemon Kearney. So thank you very much. And Michelle Sully, would you please go ahead and start us out with the question?
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. We went a little over in our first session, but I'll get right to the first question from the League of Women Voters, and that is, city leadership has publicly committed their support to continuing the work of the collaborative agreement by more fully funding the Citizens Complaint Authority in the current city budget. Do you see a need to formalize a collaborative refresh similar to the unsuccessful refresh that was attempted in 2017, 2018? And are there updates that you would like to see that may not have been included in the 2018 collaborative refresh master plan? And I'll direct that question first to Councilmember Owens, please. Thank you.
2 minutes.
2 minutes. Well, thank you so
2
much for League of Women Voters and all of the collaborators for this wonderful opportunity to talk about something very important. You know, I think what we need to focus on, or where some opportunities lie, are within the internal mechanisms to make sure that the tenets of the collaborative agreement and the CCA are working together. And so what I mean by that is there's hopefulness, there's hope in the consistent communication that CPD is having with the Citizens Complaint Authority and making sure that they are checking along the way if they are meeting the recommendations. And so one of the things that CPD is doing is making sure that they are really becoming a learning organization by saying, okay, well, we've actually done those things, but how are we documenting the recommendations, the success of that? And so I think making sure that we are accountable to making sure these pieces are continuing to work, we will continue to see progress and results. Another conversation that is happening on a consistent basis that is very fundamental to the work of the Citizens Complaint Authority is that the FOP and CPD and CCA coming together to really review the set of evidence as they review cases to make sure that there are no gaps or holes in the information that they're looking at, and making sure that they are being consistent. So again, I think we as council have the the responsibility of making sure these pieces are continuing to work. Now, once those things start happening, you know, I think looking at, is a refresh necessary? I think those are valid questions that we should continue to ask ourselves as we move forward.
Thank you very much. Would you like to redirect to someone else, Michelle?
Sure. Councilmember Harris, would you like to answer the question? And I can repeat it if necessary.
No, I have it. Again, thank you, League of Women Voters, for having us on. I would just sort of tail end off of Councilmember Owens, which I think that her response I'm directly aligned with, and also say that when we talk about the tenets of the collaborative agreement, looking at how for the past year, this council and the administration and mayor have taken some of those tenets and implement them in a way that we have not seen in the history of the collaborative agreement. And so what I want to talk about is the use of problem solving in the SARA model. You know, early in the beginning of our tenure, we brought on Iris Rowley as our consultant. And what Iris really impressed upon us, and I can actually say, I know that all of my colleagues on this second edition of the panel, we engaged the SARA model in various activities that we were leading around home ownership or pedestrian safety, around housing. And so, you know, what I just want to sort of illuminate is this idea that we had in our collaborative agreement, these structures around community engagement and governance that extended beyond policing that weren't necessarily utilized, and we are utilizing those. And so I am curious to see what an entire term with us and a tenure in City Hall where those processes become embedded and normalized, right? And then is it that it's a collaborative refresh, or is it about really being adherent to those tenets? And so we are really, I believe, adhering to some of those original tenets of the agreement.
Thank you so much. Michelle, would you like to send the question to someone else?
Sure. Vice Mayor Kearney. Would
Hi.
you like me to repeat the question or?
Oh, it's fine.
Okay.
I just, I mean, everything that council members Owens and Harris said, I think they're really hitting the nail on the head. Let me just say the collaborative agreement has made a huge difference in Cincinnati. Someone who grew up here, and, growing up, like our relationship, with the police was generally, not always, but generally not good. I mean, I grew up in Avondale. There was a lot of distrust, a lot of animosity, mainly because, most police officers were from the West Side. There was very little diversity. There wasn't community engagement. Police were not involved in our neighborhoods. So the collaborative agreement changed all that. And so council members, the previous council, this council, probably councils before us, they can see how Cincinnati has become a national model because of the work of the Black United Front and the collaborative agreement, led by Iris Rowley and Al Gerhardstein and many others, Reverend Damon Lynch, the third. I mean, it's really changed the culture in Cincinnati, and you can see that happening. So as a result, City Council has funded, for example, the Citizens Complaint Authority. There were years when they were just not, that organization, that agency part of the city was just not funded well. And so they really got behind in terms of answering complaints. And so that really hurt credibility. Under the leadership of Gabe Davis, we're catching up, and the CCA is doing really well. So when Iris and Al and others came together, a year or so ago and said, we need a refresh, there's some things we can still do better. So it's an ongoing process. One of those was to get the city managers advisory group really back together and working. I understand that's going well. So a lot of it has to do with funding and support from council. This council is all in, and this mayor is all in. And I think, as Councilmember Harris said, hiring Iris Rowley on as a consultant with the city manager's office has been a really huge help, because she's on the inside pushing for change as well as being on the outside. And so things are really moving forward. And you can see this year we had the zero tolerance policy, for example. And so things are really moving ahead. It's a process. It's not perfect, but we are working together. And so I'm really proud of the work that's happening. And honestly, community relations with our police are totally different. A lot of our police officers are considered a part of the community in which they serve. That's totally different than the culture was when I was growing up here. And so we are really making progress, and we're really a model for the country. We're a model for the country, and that's super important.
Thank you so much. Michelle?
And I think we just have Councilmember Jeffries. If you would like to respond, please.
Yeah, thank you. I apologize. I was on a community council forum, and so I got on a little late. I didn't hear the question, but I think I have the gist. So no need. I'll respect people's time. So no need to repeat. And I also don't want to repeat what my colleagues said. I'd say three things. The collaborative agreement has to be a living and breathing document. It's not something that was developed years ago that you put on a shelf and just sits there and collects dust in the dustbin of history. It has to be a living and breathing document. And I believe it is. There's two parts to it, right? There's having the right systems in place, the CAC, having the SARA model in place for problem solving. And then the second part is having the right people at the table to effectively implement it and make sure that it's a living, breathing document. And it's already been alluded to, but Iris is the mother of this in many ways. And she literally physically sits on the third floor of, and she's down the hall from all of us on council, which I think is hugely not only symbolic, but it's important because she's a part of the work. So I think, you have the right processes in place, you have the right system. Is it perfect? No, but I think, have the right people at the table. And should it be refreshed? How? And all that. I also respect her leadership and that of Chairman Johnson too, who obviously has also had a lot of history with the collaborative agreement, and how we move that process forward. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. And we'll move on to Riley Taylor, ACLU. Please direct your question.
Well, first of all, on behalf of myself and the ACLU of Ohio, I'd like to thank the partner organizations, as well as all the council members and the vice mayor for joining us on this call for this important discussion. I will direct my question first to Councilmember Harris. In the 2021 forum, there was discussion around supporting youth programming like the Citizens Committee on Youth and how it related to race and policing. What has been done to increase support and funding for youth programming and support services, and what impact has it had on early contact with the criminal legal system for Cincinnati youth?
Well, this is a great question. So let's just take a historical stance and then think about how we continued it. So then Councilmember Landsman, now Congressman Landsman, before we were elected in the 21 budget cycle, really championed the use of ARPA dollars, and Vice Mayor was there and fully in support to do a cash infusion into our city's summer youth jobs programs. And then in the 23, or that was the 22 budget, right? In the 23 budget, we maintained that and then did an increase because what we recognize and we know is that our children do well when they are engaged, and our children want to be engaged. They are asking to be engaged. And so it is really incumbent upon us to make sure that the resources are there. Councilmember Owens is working very closely with Councilmember Johnson, and they've invited me into the fold, and we're thinking about our Serve Up Day. So, you know, this is the Cincinnati Initiative to Reduce Violence. And because Councilmember Owens led the efforts to declare gun violence a public health issue, it has unlocked this sort of comprehensive response to gun violence, which again is also thinking about out of school time as a mechanism to decrease youth interaction, and particularly Black male youth interaction with the criminal justice system. So the short answer is yes, that funding is important. We have made an investment and increased, and I know that it is a priority of this council, as well as additional initiatives to think about a comprehensive approach.
Thank you very much. Want to redirect it to another person? Right?
Yes, thank you. Vice Mayor Kearney, same question to you. I'm happy to repeat it if you'd like.
No problem. Hey, listen, you know, CCY, we started doing forums in various neighborhoods, and we were talking about gun violence, and residents would come and talk about solutions. But let me tell you, in every single forum we went to, somebody would come up afterwards and go, we really need CCY, Citizens Commission on Youth. It saved my life. And these are people who were probably, you know, in their 30s, 40s, 50s now. CCY was around for 57 years. I mean, you know, a really long time. And so, you know, we started looking at it like, how do we bring this back? And first of all, it was initially kind of hard to find the people who are actually running it. But, you know, we on City Council found some of them, we met with them. And so then our city manager took a lot of the work, and you know, we have to give a shout out to Iris Rowley again, because she pointed out that different council people, you know, Greg Lanson was one, I was one, there were others, were out talking to CCY, you know, veterans, I guess. And she said, you all need to come together. And we didn't realize we were all working on the same thing. So council members came together, we met, and then our city manager said she was going to help us like get this program started. So we're starting with Career Pathways Initiative, CPI, which is going to grow. And CCY actually started with the city as well and grew out of the city. It became just not just local, but also federally funded, state funded, you know, privately funded, lots of that. And it really had a huge effect because it was not only jobs for youth, there were mentorships, wraparound services, help with school and all of that. And so we are trying to bring that back. Our focus, a big focus of this city council has been on youth. You saw today in council, we were talking about that gap. There are a lot of students who are in our police cadet program. Well, once they graduate from that program at age 18, they can't join the police force until they're 21. And so we end up losing them, but now there's funding for that GAP program. And so that, just everything that council is doing when we start talking about youth, it's about looking at their future, giving them hope, giving them careers, giving them skills. Our Department of Building and Inspections is starting a program where they take high school kids, as they get ready, as they graduate from high school, and train them in inspector skills. So let me tell you, coming right out of high school, they're going to start out making $60,000 just right out of high school. I mean, it's really great. And so the idea is to really get youth on the path of careers, getting support, having hope, and having skills. Really important.
Thank you very much. Yes, very good. Riley?
Thank you. Councilmember Jeffries, would you like to address the question?
I'm sorry, sir, you are muted.
Oh, I got it. Sorry about that. I don't want to repeat what my colleague said. Obviously, 1000%. I think we're all on the same page on this issue. I'll make one additional comment. I mean, we did increase the budget $1 million. I do think it is about a holistic look at this, right? Wraparound services. Yes, it's about summer jobs, about year round. It's about when kids graduate from high school, the opportunity in the trades. As a society, I think we try to push everybody into college, like push, and especially with all the federal investment coming down in infrastructure dollars, massive amount. We obviously have things like the Brent Spence Bridge being built, the Companion Bridge, Western Hills Viaduct. Just the opportunity in this region. First of all, as a region, we're going to need laborers, electricians, iron workers, all of those workers, all of that, and the opportunity to apprentice and learn. I think that's another leg of the stool here that I think is critically important. It serves the need in the region, and sorry, I know we're not supposed to collaborate here, given Sunshine will or mention people, but I do think it also does. It is a great paying job. I mean, iron workers and laborers. That's another leg of the stool that I do think we have been working with our friends in labor on tying into CPS. That is an important element of it as well.
Thank you very much. Riley, do we need to hear have we heard from everyone, or do we still need to hear from?
I wanted to mention one more thing, if it's okay. I don't want to break the rules. I don't know how strict your rules are on time. Are they?
I also think we haven't heard from Councilmember Meeks. Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Owens, pardon me.
Some people do call me Meeks, so.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, no
Pardon me,
worries.
Councilmember Owens.
That's okay. That's quite all right. Very affectionate. I think what you're hearing is the theme is resounding around jobs and engagement. And so, but the mechanism is prioritizing where we're putting resources in our budget, right? Because a budget is a moral document. And so you did see investment into our pathways, career pathways program, our cadet program. These are things that we can further expand to work with our external partners as it relates to giving kids additional opportunities, right? Opportunities within not just fire and police, but within DPS, within building and inspections, as Vice Mayor offered. This also wraps into, and thank you, Councilmember Harris, for elevating the disruption to violence that when we're investing in young people and when we're looking at this comprehensive approach. And so as we looked at our human services priorities, one of those that we wanted to really give some weight to is violence prevention, right? And so really addressing and being very prescriptive in how these RFPs are going to now go out when we're working with our nonprofit organizations on, providing access to jobs for young people, trauma-informed care for young people, all of these pieces that are working together. One last thing, in addition to budgets being a moral document and where we are allocating resources, you see that this is a council that is prioritizing deferred maintenance. So when we're talking about being able to allocate money to fix up a rec center that has asbestos in it, to bring it back to productive use, to open a pool over the summer, these are the reasons that we are making some really tough decisions that we need to make around the budget, but making sure that we're allocating them to things that are going to lift people up and engage young people that ultimately will strengthen our community.
Thank you very much. I think we have a little extra time, or do we not? if we can make it quickly, Vice Mayor Kearney.
Okay, thank you. You know, I was remiss in not mentioning Brothers in Motion. We're talking about, you know, policing, we're talking about youth, we're talking about anti-violence. And that is just, I mean, you all remember the guys, water boys, they were called, who were out there selling water, and the police came, they were arrested, you know, all kinds of, you know, things happened. But, you know, thanks to, you know, Iris Rowley in the city and all of that, they're now in a program, they are in an entrepreneurial program and learning to be entrepreneurs. And I mean, it's really fantastic. They have just skyrocketed. And, you know, they're really well, they're almost like celebrities now. You know, Iris called the other day, and something's happening in Atlanta. I think they're getting an award or something, and she's taking them down there. But now they're called Brothers in Motion, and they, you know, they have a business, and they are business people, and they're learning business skills. And so that's, you know, that's a good idea, just a good example of how a negative situation can really be turned around. And so they're, you know, so everybody is supporting them. Officer Eddie Hawkins and so many others from CPD, you know, Iris, her group, you know, CEAI. I mean, they are really a prime example of what we can do, how we can support our youth and really help them grow and bring everybody together. So I just love that idea. And I was remiss in not mentioning Brothers in Motion when we were first talking about this.
Thank you for bringing that up, and we will move on so we have time to address the women.
You guys are like, quick, let's go. So
No.
We're talking all night. All right, I'm with you. Sorry, go ahead.
Jan, would you like to address your question? Jan?
Yes,
would you like to address
I hope I'm
your
not breaking
question?
up as much as I was. Am I speaking okay?
You're fine.
Okay, great. I'm Jan Seymour with the Women's City Club, one of the co-sponsors of tonight's event. And my question, unfortunately, a lot of it's already been covered, or fortunately, so maybe some quick answers just to parts of it, because my question was about the collaborative agreement and how that is monitored. And I think we know that we've hired Iris Rowley, and she's doing a good job of sort of holding people accountable and keeping everybody together. But part of my question was about the Citizens Complaint Authority. And I know there were some issues last year about the funding for that. And I wondered if someone could answer about the current budget, if it's been deemed sufficient, because I know that the CCA was very far behind in their investigations. Let me see, shall I ask Council Member Harris to respond to that? Do you know about the budget for the Citizens Complaint Authority?
Yeah, so I think it's important that the answer to this is nuanced, right? And so there is, I think you can look from the budget, there were proposed from the CCA staff, some needs around hiring, administration, and then there's just some technology needs. As I understand it, and what we are working towards is that there's a tiered approach. There are resources there to be able to really focus on case closings and really making sure that we are doing the business and making sure that backlog isn't there. And that resource has been provided, and based upon getting caught up in that area, there will be a tiered approach in terms of, you know, an additional administrative position here, a technology position there. I think the point is that the administration, the council, and the mayor are fully supportive of having CCA fully up and running and functioning. And our work now is just doing it in a very strategic way to move forward. From my vantage point, there is no real debate about the need or the desire, but it's really about making sure we're getting there strategically.
Okay, well, thank you very much. Jan, do you want to send?
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Owens, do you have some input on the budget for the CCA?
Yeah, I'll just add, and totally in alignment with my colleague there, just to give you some numbers. In the last fiscal budget, we allocated a little over $1.2 million. And that allowed for this catching up with these cases. And so again, just being very strategic and prescriptive on, okay, where are we at? What's low hanging fruit and what can we support moving forward? So that allowed them to expand that work. It also allowed them to say that by the end of this year, they will have caught up on those cases. So again, we want to continue to fund, of course, the CCA and making sure that they're hitting these other really important metrics, like being able to, just really expand their community engagement work. And so these pieces are matriculating, one step at a time. So we are moving in the right direction.
Okay, thank you. Jan?
Great, thank you. Councilmember Jeffries, do you want to have input on that question?
So budget, I think CCA, Gabe Davis would say we've funded what he needed. If you think about CCA, I think that there's two parts to the mission, right? There is addressing complaints of people. And then the second, which is as important, which they have not been able to get to because of the backlog, have been what systemic changes need to be made to systems to prevent those complaints in the first place, right? And so that work is looking at the aggregate of all the complaints, okay, based on what we see, what kind of patterns we see, what are the interventions we need to make to change the system in order to make sure that in the future these complaints don't happen. And so the good news is that, the backlog is getting through. They have hired several folks. And then once that's through, then they can take a step back and look holistically across the few years and that's the part that I'm really excited about. I mean, I think it's important to address the complaints, but ultimately you only get out ahead of this if you're really figuring out what system interventions need to be done. And that's the next step.
Thank you very much. And Jan? Vice Mayor, Jan, can you hear me, Jan? Vice Mayor Kearney.
You know what? I didn't know if you were talking to Jan or this Jan. So
I'm so sorry, ma'am. I would not call you Jan. I would call you Vice Mayor. We have Jan Seymour.
No, call me Jan. No, please.
No, ma'am. No, ma'am. I was referring to Jan Seymour from the Women's City Club, but you go ahead. I think you're the last one.
Well, if it's okay, yeah. So agreed with everything. CCA is actually fully funded now, as my colleagues have said, and that was a fight. That was a hard-won fight. Not with this council, but with previous councils, they were, I think a little hesitant. But it's really important that we have enough investigators, because we lose credibility when it takes so long to address complaints. I mean, the whole point is to have a place for citizens to go and to have their grievances addressed. And if it takes forever to do that, if somebody has a grievance and a year later they still haven't heard anything, I mean, that's just horrible. And that's kind of where we were. We were like 2 weeks behind in some cases. So we are fully funded. We are catching up. Gabe Davis is a wonderful leader in that. I think we still might have some issues with the analysis of the body worn cameras. We might need some help there. So there's still some room for improvement, but things are moving forward, and we do have good staff on board. So that's great.
Thank you very much. Michelle, do you want to address another question then?
Certainly. And I'll start this with Councilmember Jeffries. So the Hamilton County Sheriff's Department has recently trained in the Active Bystander for Law Enforcement, or ABLE, project, which aims to create a culture within police departments of preventing misconduct, avoiding police mistakes, and promoting officer health and wellness. Do you believe there are additional trainings such as ABLE? I think President Pro Tem Parks mentioned EPIC, which is Ethical Policing is Courageous, or any other certifications that CPD should implement.
Yeah, thank you. So the first thing I'd say on officer wellness is if you were at the or watched Chief DG's swearing in, this is one of her top priorities. You know, as rightfully as it should be, right? Because not just for the sake of the officers who, you know, go home. I mean, police officers is one of the highest suicide, you know, professions out there. I think it's top 3 in the country in general because of the stress of the job. So, you know, it does take a toll. And so I do think officer wellness is something for their own sake, but also obviously for the sake of the public that we need to take very seriously. So the first place that I start with that is a couple things. First, now that we have a new chief, give her the opportunity to assess what's needed, right? I'm not the expert. We're not the expert. You know, there are a lot of good initiatives. And since this is the top priorities of hers, you know, I would look to her, and I'm having a meeting with her next week to say, okay, here are the gaps, and, you know, this is what's needed. We have implemented across the city, actually, and they presented to public safety, CPD, a wellness program that actually other surrounding communities are looking at, officer wellness. And so I think that's fantastic. And I would look to continue to support that from a budget standpoint, and whether it's able or whatever. I have also talked this with, you know, Sheriff McGuffey as well. I think what they've done has been fantastic. So I fully supportive of it. I'll let the new chief kind of have her space to take the lead as we should give her, since this is already a top priority for her.
Thank you. Michelle?
Vice Mayor Kearney, would you have anything to add to that?
I totally agree with what Councilmember Jeffrey said. Now, President Pro Tem is talking to the chief about ABLE, and so that might be something that she's considering. I'm not sure exactly where she is with that now, but yeah, I'm really encouraged that that mental health is also part of health. And so, you know, we all know, I'm not telling you anything new. You know, policing is a really stressful, dangerous job. It's stressful for the family, it's stressful for the officer. And so having those mental health, those check-ins as well as the physical, that's really important. And that culture has changed as well. Talking to Councilmember Scotty Johnson, he said, you know, back in the day, it was just like, you know, you just saw someone, you know, get shot or killed, just, you know, suck it up, keep going. And that's not good. I mean, it's, you know, we've seen the effect of that across the country in other cities where, you know, where police are just so stressed out, and even here. And so we really have to make sure that we take care of not just physical health, but mental health. And our chief is on top of that. And so that's very encouraging.
Thank you.
Councilmember Owens, would you have anything to add to that, please?
Yes, I will just add, it's building on my colleagues' comments as well. ABLE is an important concept. And so my understanding is that CPD has also looked at that training and really customized it to the needs of CPD. And so really making sure there's a laid out process that officers understand exactly what to do and exactly how to respond in those situations. So we're in full support of something that upholds accountability in policing and really helps to call out you know, bad behavior. The other piece to that too is that OPATA, the Ohio Peace Officer Training, allows a little bit of flexibility in terms of what things that we're going to be training on. So I'm hopeful with this new chief that she is looking to be as innovative and expansive as possible as it relates to CPD becoming a learning organization. So I am confident in that. The other piece too, in regards to wellness, which is such an important component in policing, because officers should be in an environment that is conducive to their total well-being, which also relates to retention. And so we have a wellness program, and just going back to the innovation that this chief I know is supporting, someone who it was just their passion to do it, to coordinate, to make sure that they were able to bring services to officers, really being able to expand that role and really looking at some grant opportunities to do that. And so one of the pieces of our wellness program is that it really empowers family members to then become proxies for police officers. So when an officer can't go and say to the wellness coordinator, hey, you know, I'm feeling this certain way, their relatives can make a phone call. So it's really a well-rounded kind of 360 approach. In addition to just upholding wellness, you know, this app that officers have access to, they can in an immediate moment, just going to their phone, feeling whatever kind of way, can immediately take an assessment and then get connected to you know, services that will continue to support them. This app, I think over the last year, has been used like over 700 times. There's nearly 1,000 officers. So the officers are really responding well to it. So again, I am looking forward to, as this chief is getting into her new role, really being able to expand these components of policing while being very open to new ideas.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. And Councilmember Harris, would you like to add anything?
Yeah, I would just briefly say, Councilmember Owen sort of highlighted the point that I do want to really make sure that we walk away with, is that CPD has adopted a version of the ABLE program to work with the police department. But I do want to add just sort of this kind of what I think is important sort of tone shift in this conversation when I really think about the work of the collaborative agreement, the work of the Cincinnati Black United Front, the work of the administration, and where we sit with policing in Cincinnati. You know, we've seen since 2001 or 2 a 54% decrease in police use of force, right? We've seen, we have a data-driven approach, and we've seen really positive changes. And so when we begin to think about, when we begin to think about how we continue on that path and expand, I think it's important to recognize that we have a model that's working. And one of the things that's important about the model that's working is that because it's built into police policy, it's sort of protected from political whims, right? And so we don't, I think we want to avoid situations where with every administration that comes in, there's then a new priority or a new way that we're trying to do policing, when we know that we have a model that, yes, is responsive to the times. And so that's where we sit. And I think one of the most valuable things that we have added as a council and with this mayor is that really we've taken a moment to take a step back and to really adhere to the collaborative agreement, listen to the folks that are doing the work, and then are being supportive in this way. Because I don't want to say new ideas aren't happening, but ideas that were part of the original spirit and tenet are now actually fully being implemented and supported and listened to.
Thank you much. Michelle?
Michelle, can I make one add point? Sorry.
Sure.
Yeah, just one. I think Councilman Harris's point of 54% reduction in use of force is an amazing thing that I think all of us should keep in mind. The other piece of that is last year we had the lowest violent crime rate in a decade. And so, you know, one might say, wow, you have this, you know, lower use of force and you have mayhem and blah, blah, blah. No, actually, we've accomplished both. We've accomplished the lowest violent crime rate in a decade while also reducing deadly force. And so I think it's an and I think it's an important point, you know, that yes, you can do policing and you can reduce violent crime while also reducing deadly force.
Okay. Thank you.
Great.
And I'm done, Laurel. I'm good.
Okay, thanks. Riley, please ask your question.
Of course, and since I do believe we're getting closer to the end of our time, I will ask this quickly, but this will first be addressed to Vice Mayor Kearney. One idea discussed at the 2021 forum was to view public safety through a broader lens, including affordable housing. Since this is such an important issue, do you see funding of the Affordable Housing Trust Fund and other similar initiatives as part of a holistic approach to public safety? And if not, what do you think should be part of such a holistic approach?
Absolutely. You know, I mean, the idea that you're talking about a holistic approach is super important. You know, we can't look at gun violence in a vacuum. I just got back from New York, for example, where we were looking at some of their anti-gun violence policies. And a lot of it has to do with affordable housing, jobs, having mentorships, having support, having basic needs met. I mean, it's all part of, people are out there trying to survive. And, when folks are really, in poverty and, and feeling hopeless, I mean, this is how we have gun violence. I mean, we can't ignore why this is happening. No one wants to get out there and, and get shot and killed. It becomes part of the lifestyle, really, when people are in an environment where they are struggling to actually live, where they don't have good housing. And housing, housing first is really it. I mean, you have to have housing, you have to have a safe, decent place to live. And so, yes, that's a big part of it. And then also where people have a means of making a living, a big part of reducing gun violence is making sure people have a livelihood. I mean, folks, get out of prison and you're saying, oh, well, there you are, we're not gonna let you, live here because, you've got this felony. We're not gonna hire you because you've got this felony. Okay, so now you don't have a place to live. You don't have food. You can't eat. You can't support your family. So where does that leave you? You're back out in the streets with gun violence. So yeah, it's got to be holistic. We've got to take a holistic approach. This council is definitely doing that.
Okay, thank you. Riley?
Yes, Councilmember Owens, would you like to address the question?
Yes, I mean, I think Vice Mayor is hitting on all the cylinders. Public safety is about neighborhood ecology. It is not in a vacuum in terms of, and gun violence, public safety, all of these pieces go hand in hand. So yes, it's absolutely supporting the Affordable Housing Trust Fund because people need basic needs met, right? So roofs over heads, access to good jobs. It also means the built environment. It also means green spaces in communities, beautification. All of these pieces make a difference. Transportation too, access to good jobs. And so we've got a tremendous opportunity when we look at connectivity in the city and we look at the infrastructure dollars that are coming. It also means these wraparound services that relate to mental health access and how we are partnered in the community and well networked to look at these things. Eviction prevention and housing stabilization is such an important piece to this equation as well. And as you saw, this council supported our human services prioritization, making sure that housing first is shown up in that human services funding. And so we are allocating an historic amount of money to what we are calling an impact award to be able to do just that, prevent evictions. We're also doing work around tenants' bill of rights and access to counsel. These are all pieces to the equation as we are addressing what more resilient communities even look like. And so I'm very confident that as we look at gun violence as a public health crisis, again, as Councilmember Harris alluded to, this opens up a whole nother world of being able to approach this in a comprehensive manner. And so we're taking definitely the right steps as we are looking at what does complexity science even look like with these very, these social ills that we have to solve.
Thank you very much. Riley?
Yeah. Councilmember Harris, would you like to answer the question next?
Yeah, so, we started this conversation talking about the collaborative agreement. And when we look at the collaborative agreement and we read it, it states very clearly that the collaborative agreement is knowing that we operate in an ecology. So it states that effective policing, reduction of violent crime cannot be solved by police alone, right? It is solved by our partners in education, our social service partners, our public health partners, right, our health partners, and our housing partners. And so if we are to say, and we have said in the affirmative that we support the collaborative agreement, that then means we absolutely must then support areas around housing and health and jobs, et cetera. So yes, right. So that's like that is the spirit of the housing agreement. I am 100% of us funding the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. And I want to be clear in defining the Affordable Housing Trust Fund as in the Affordable Housing Trust Fund that we have designated through council action with the Cincinnati Development Fund, the fund of funds that is highly leveraged and funded to the tune thanks to partnership with our partners at the county, to $100 million. And we've dedicated a sustainable revenue stream, the first since the beginning of the fund, to do so. In addition to prioritizing our city NOVA dollars to funding housing that is affordable to folks at 50% AMI or below. In addition to that, adding to the language of the Cincinnati Development Fund that we would prioritize city dollars to be affordable to projects at 80% of the area median income below, right? So for the first time in the history of the city of Cincinnati, we have an affordable housing policy strategy that is written in at 3 levels of our development finance. And so, yes, funding the Affordable Housing Trust Fund at CDF is of the utmost importance, and it is because we adhere to and believe in the collaborative agreement.
Thank you. Councilmember Jeffries, would you like to close us out on this topic?
Yeah, thank you. I'll echo some of the comments. First of all, this is what I love about this council. Seriously, like the question was holistic solutions. And as you look at who's on here, Councilman Harris has taken the lead on affordable housing, youth jobs, the vice mayor, Green Cincinnati, gun violence, Councilwoman Owens, all of those things. And, I've taken, have a huge passion around transportation. All of those things, feed into what you're talking about as a holistic solution. So yes, on affordable housing, and I won't repeat what Councilman Harris said on all of that, because I think, we do have the systems in place for it. But to really tackle this issue, I think police would be the first people to say that you can't police your way out of crime, right? It's just not going to happen. And so the solutions are everything that we're talking about. And when we have 10% of Cincinnati public school kids who are homeless, which is 3 times the national average, how is it that they can learn? That's not setting them up to succeed. That's not setting them up for success. And so these solutions have to be holistic. When we think about transportation, if we don't have a robust public transit system, people are forced to buy a car. You spend $10,000 a year on average on a car. That I think is a key element of why people are in poverty and contributing to a lot of challenges. So each one of these, and to Councilwoman Owens' point, even the Green Cincinnati plan links to that, right? We know that people who live in a non-heat island, there's a 10-degree difference in the city on the neighborhood you live in. Depending on tree canopy coverage, that affects health. And there's data to show it also affects crime rates. So all of these things are linked. And I love how all of us, have a different part to play. And I think it's so important because there's so many issues and not one person can tackle it by themselves. But I think this council comes together in a really good way that way.
You're muted.
I was done.
Thank you so much, everyone. I really learned a lot from listening to you, and I'm very impressed with our city council. I am really amazed by everything you guys are involved in. Thank you so much, and thank you also for participating, for our co-sponsors, Riley Taylor ACLU and Jan Seymour from the Women's City Club. And thank you, Michelle, for doing a great job. And